I can probably do a whole kind of episode on like the retreat itself and everything that went into it, but we really wanted to showcase like the team in this little podcast series, if you will, to talk about kind of the main important themes that we've been going over. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Create Your Life podcast. This is a really special edition because we have our first in-person guest. Woo! We have Kasey Sheeran here, who is the owner of Workflows and Waves. I thought there was an and in there, but she's also the OBM here at 22 Marketing Co. And if you've been following along on social media, you know that we have our team retreat. Well, had it, past tense now, in Vancouver. So we thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to do a little live podcasting because I don't think I've ever done a live in person one. So this is very exciting and a perfect opportunity for us to kind of digest and reflect all the things we've been doing and learning during this retreat. So, Case, how you feeling? You excited?
Good.
You ready?
I'd say thanks for having me on this, but thanks for letting me sleep in your house for 4 nights.
Yes. We've had a great time. I feel like I can probably do a whole kind of episode on like the retreat in itself and everything that went into it, but we really wanted to showcase like the team in this little podcast series, if you will, to talk about kind of the main important themes that we've been going over. And what Kasey and I are going to talk about is how to know when it's time to up level your client experience. And I feel like specifically, yes, for social media managers, but I feel like a lot of this can apply to any business, honestly, in general.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, because a lot of what we did in this retreat, Kasey and I have been working for months, honestly, on a lot of some bigger projects that we're really excited to implement. And this, it's been month long, conversations and collaborations and to the point where we're finally ready to kind of launch what we're working on. But I feel like this is client experience is something I've always been passionate about talking about. And I feel like you're so good at putting together in the back end. So it works really well from our two brains. So what would you say is kind of that first initial step for okay, red flag or red light goes off, I think there's something in my client experience that needs to be changed or up leveled?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think one, it's when clients, and maybe back stepping a little bit, client experience being from them coming in as a lead to them offboarding, right? So it's not just the experience when they're in it, it's before they even sign on to you, what is their experience like? So I think a couple things to look for is one, are clients coming on board with you and having questions? Are they confused on their next steps? Are they unsure of what you need from them and what they need from you? I think that's a huge thing. And then two, are you the bottleneck in bringing clients on or giving them the deliverables they need?
Yeah.
I think those are really big key signs that it's time to up level your client experience.
Yeah, and I think especially when you're just starting, but even then, if you're kind of scaling or you're growing, don't just let those things go. Really be good at identifying what those gaps are and coming up with, okay, what are the commonalities? What are the patterns here, right? Because I noticed with myself at the beginning, you think it's not going to be a big deal. Right? You think
sure.
Oh, this is so tiny, right? Or this isn't taking me much time right now, right? Or this isn't a big deal right now, but those things can really add up. And you don't want to be having that mentality for the rest of your business,
Right.
So
you don't want to get off of a discovery call and then tell them you're going to get them a proposal and then you have to take care of all your client work. So it's now 3 days later and you're getting them a proposal. That's not a positive client experience for them. So they're already going to move on to their next potential hire.
Yeah. And another good point that is related from this is from these things, identifying are clients dropping off at a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, do they have an unhappy like onboarding experience, or do they only last on your package for a month or 3 months or whatever your minimum is,
Right.
or does nothing happen during offboard? Like, where does the client kind of falter in something, right? Like, that is the core of client experience. And I think a big part of what we've talked about with 22 Marketing Co. is making sure the client experience is so strong, because that's what gets you referrals. That's what keeps your long-term revenue and clientele. And like, that is the core and lifeblood of your business.
And especially for service providers, I think
Mm-hmm.
in my business, in your business, typically the biggest leading generator of clients is referrals.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why client experience is so important,
Mm-hmm.
because you can do all the marketing in the world, but like if you just have someone who has a huge network and they're dropping your name, like
Mm-hmm.
that's going to give you clients, and that's going to be the least amount of work for you. So
Yeah.
that starts in your client experience. That's where you're putting the
Mm-hmm.
work in.
Yeah. And I think the third point here is like, if you're at a point when, especially if you're finding like a slew of clients are coming in, you may be noticing that you want to attract and work with like a higher caliber of clientele,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, maybe you are looking to increase your prices, or like shift your package model, or maybe a certain higher level offer. That's a really good sign to say, okay, then my client experience needs to match that. So, what are the ways that I can up level my client onboarding, right? Or
Right.
like seamless deliverables that can be like automized like during the delivery process. Like, those little things are what a higher level like client will truly appreciate, and you need to make sure everything matches, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
the back end of your business matches with the deliverables that you are giving them. So that is something that, those higher clients will notice. Like, that is
Absolutely.
huge for
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're noticing any of those kind of three main patterns, I would say those are signs it's time to like, okay, I need to up level something in my client experience. And where the
Yep.
customization comes in here is that where those gaps are. So maybe there's maybe nothing has come up in the onboarding process, right? But maybe something is feeling sticky in the day-to-day communication,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it's the offboarding process. Like, this is where it really comes down to knowing you and your business and your clients, because the stuff that like Kasey and I have been building, it's going to be very different than like what Kasey has built with other clients.
Absolutely. No one's client experience is the same.
Mm-hmm.
One, they may have different goals, they may have different services, and they
Mm-hmm.
may just have different communication styles. Like how, Sydney likes to communicate with clients in Slack. Another client might say, I don't want them reaching out to me in Slack. And so
Mm-hmm.
that changes the whole dynamic of how we're structuring their experience.
Yeah.
Like communication is small, but it's something that happens throughout the entire process of working with a client.
Exactly. So you may be thinking, okay, cool, this sounds great. Like, where do I go from here? Because there's a lot of different elements that you could, implement. So like, what kind of is that first step, or the first thing that you can look into? And we're kind of gonna model it off of the process that we kind of went through together. But first and foremost, after we identified the gaps, after we looked at what our clients like needed and wanted, it was like, what are the tools that are going to help us achieve those things? And it was a lot of like back and forth in terms of like what tools were going to offer us exactly, what we were
Yeah.
looking for. And for us, like, kind of these projects that we've been talking about are really occurring in Honeybook and ClickUp.
Yeah.
And for us, those are probably the two biggest tools we have in the business already.
Mm-hmm.
And where maybe could have done some of these things in other tools, but we were looking at what do we have that we can use already,
Mm-hmm.
and like really harness those things. Because also a lot of tools, especially if they're good tools, they will have new features, that pop up. They will like get better at what they're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
it almost helps give you those nudges to up level. Like, if you are in Honeybook or have any experience in Honeybook, smart files, like, that's a new feature that allowed us to up level our whole onboarding and taking things out of Canva, but into HoneyBook itself.
I think those features are what really drove us to like look at our client experience more, like how can we up level this onboarding, the lead experience, the onboarding experience, and click up more with the delivery. But yeah, I think with HoneyBook and their new tools, it allowed us to put everything in one place. And the really cool thing about it is that when we make updates, it updates it for all clients moving forward. It's not like with using something like Canva to host PDFs we would create. We'd download the PDFs. We would, put them in an email. Every time we need to make an update, we have to go through the whole step of doing it. Where now I can just log into HoneyBook, make a couple tweaks, and going forward, it's already updated. So using the right tools is huge. And HoneyBook is a CRM system, so it's not going to do everything for you. And CRM being client relation management. But it has some really good tools for us to automate the processes so that when leads come in through forms, they're automatically getting an email that says, hey, we received this. We're going to get back to you in 48 hours. We're going to review it. And so having those automations gives clients like a sense of relief that their requests and their questions are received.
Yes. Yeah. We live in a very instant gratification world. And not only does it give the client that, but there's so many little steps that you don't have to do like in the process. And I think every business owner, if you can get your time back in any capacity, you're going to want to do that. So, these tools know what you're looking for and they're trying to adapt and model for that. So take advantage of those things. Like we could have just kept our HoneyBook how it was. Like, sure, it was working fine, but like it had the opportunity to be better. So choosing the right tools.
And I think we were also talking about just like what steps to take. And a big one is just being so clear in your offers and making them like, I would advise you to not make custom offers for all of your clients, because then when they're custom, everything you do, you have to do every time. And so when you have those proposals already set up with the offers and they get to just select like beginner, intermediate, advanced, like it takes so much pressure off of you to figure out what the package is for each person. So in terms of like what to do, I would say first step is being clear on your packages and having those be transferable to all your clients.
And from there, making sure you understand your processes. Like we literally went through each process from beginning to end. Like what happens when a lead comes in, and then what happens before a call, and then what happens after the call, like what happens when they sign, like every little step, get really, really clear on the processes. And again, like onboarding, delivery, and offboarding, like truly from point A to point Z, because you may start like building something in HoneyBook. You may start going through ClickUp and then you're like, oh, I don't know what happens next. Like I don't know where to go. And so when you understand the process, and especially if you have a team member who's helping you, like they need to understand that process as well.
And I will say, if someone like comes to me to help them with the Dubsado setup or a ClickUp setup, and they're like, I'm a new business and I just want to get things started on the right foot, so I want to set up my CRM system, I will turn them away as a client, because until you start bringing on clients and test out certain things, your process is going to change. So like at first it's just documenting what works and what didn't work, and then you're going to get really clear on the steps that need to happen. And that's when it's time to implement something like HoneyBook, Dubsado, a CRM system, but not necessarily like I know it's like when you start out a business, you want to do like everything perfectly. And like that sounds great on paper, but your process is going to change. And it's just a trial and error, and there's no other way around that.
Yeah, because where we are now with our processes took years to get to. And like, it's like really stellar right now, but that came from identifying the gaps. That came from like having a higher clientele. Like, so just know that, if you are starting, like you will get there, and there's going to take all these additional steps to go through first to get really clear on it. And then the last kind of part here that we really want to drive home is that this was a lot of collaboration. Like this was us going back and forth, us also getting our team's input because they work with clients, day in and day out. Client feedback. Yeah, like there's a lot that goes into it versus just like maybe a singular person or two people being like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Like listening and getting, not that you want to listen to every single like person, like 20 people's opinions, but the right people's opinions, and like going from there and implementing those things are really, really important because they may be bringing something up that you're missing, or that like you didn't think of, or like a question that a client might have as they're going through something and you're like, oh yeah, like, let me add that in. Something.
Would it be helpful to talk through what our client experience looks like on a high level?
Yeah, let's do it.
I feel like that could be, yeah. So the way that we have it set up is a lead will fill out an application form on our website, and then we will get a notification saying that they've applied, and they'll get an automated email letting them know that we received that application. If they're a fit, we are going to send them a whole packet about our packages, about what working with us looks like, all of that, and then also give them a link to schedule a call with you. If they're not a fit, we let them know because I think that's just as important. And with that, we give them recommendations of other people to, reach out to.
Yeah.
Because we still want to be helpful even if they're not
a
fit. So once they book the call, they're going to get a proposal. Again, they get that email, it thanks them for their time, and they can select the packages that they want.
Yeah.
Which is huge. And so they have the option to figure that out for themselves. They sign a contract, they pay their invoice, and they receive an automated email with all of their next steps.
Yes. A huge, well, not huge, but like amazing welcome guide that is like really clear. And also just, I do feel like user experience is also really important, where things are clear to navigate and go through and understand. So like, yes, aesthetics, and like, yes, that's great, but like, is it easy to use, like, and simple to understand?
And so the smart files gave us the ability to all in one place them to get that welcome guide with how to work with us, policies and procedures, and also an onboarding questionnaire and a link to, schedule their kickoff call. So it's all in one place.
Yeah.
Which has been amazing. And then once they schedule that call, it's all about client deliverables, and that's where we use ClickUp to we have that whole process of what needs to happen on the back end.
Yeah.
So that they're ready to go by the time they have that call. And so that's been really good.
That's going to be like so amazing in HoneyBook. And the other end of this is like basically all of that gets like undone during the offboarding process. So it's also really clear in HoneyBook where they're getting their offboarding packets of like what's going to happen, when is it going to happen, like what do you need to do like in the meantime, and that makes it so seamless so that even the experience of offboarding is
positive.
It's going well. And in ClickUp, during typical like client deliverables, we've set up a like client hub space in ClickUp. And this kind of came from a need that we were seeing, from clients, from our team, of having one spot to locate everything, like to locate their Google Drive stuff, to locate their social media scheduler, what tasks they need, resources. So again, it's simplifying the user experience. And
and it ties back into what we said in the beginning. Where are the gaps?
Yes.
Finding the things that they needed was a gap.
Yeah.
So how can we fix that? Oh, a client hub where it's all in one place. Every question they have can be directed to that one link.
Yeah, exactly. And like we already used ClickUp. Our team's already in ClickUp. So it made it really easy for us to kind of migrate things over there. And so these are the two really big projects that we are launching for Q4, and is really, really exciting, to see. And I felt like our client experience was already great, but now it's going to match like, where we're headed. And so that's really important from what we touched upon, from the beginning. So hopefully you can just start with, those first three things that we chatted about to see, okay, like it's important to have the mindset of like your client experience is never done.
No.
Like there's always going to be something I think we can do to improve upon it. So at like this process we'll probably go through in like 6 months, like we
Yeah.
might find something else, right? Or the things that we just launched might look a little bit different. So just know that like this is going to be a constant conversation you're having, but this framework I think will give you like just a good process to follow and like know where to go. And if your current client listening or client that's going to come on, just you wait. Just you wait, because it's going to be good.
It's going to be amazing. You're going to feel held.
Yes, that's for sure. Well, thanks so much, Case,
Thank you.
for chatting about this. We've just had like the best time, and we are going to do, like I said, a whole little kind of team series for this, and this is just like where our brains have been the past like 3 months at least. Yes. So it's been Absolutely. Good to chat through. Yay. So yay, thanks for listening. Leave a review, subscribe, follow, do all the things, and I'll see you next time.